very good evening to you and welcome to Big Talk here on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. My name is Godwin Sunday. Well, let's talk about some pressing issues right now, even in Kano State at the moment, where fire incident has become like a recurring phenomenon and a common decimal factor even in Kano State. Well, most people will say that some of these fire incidents in Kano State has been particularly targeting some individuals, especially some ethnic group within and around the state, while others will say that this is to distract the Emirates of Kano, which has been on the news for a longer time on this issue of who is the Emir of Kano. But then let's even talk about Kano State this evening, and joining me to talk about Kano State is a public affairs analyst all the way from Kano, Adamu Bello, joining me from Kano this evening. Good evening and good to have you join me this evening, even Adamu Bello, to talk about the state of the nation, using Kano as a takeoff for the conversation.
Good evening, how are you?
All right, Adamu, let's look at Kano State at the moment. A lot of speculations, but one thing that has been very visible and sacrosanct is the fact that fire incidents has become a reoccurring phenomenon in Kano State. When we thought the Dakata incident that happened about 2 months ago was the end of fire incident, we've seen a recent fire incident in Kano State on Friday evening. But bring us up to speed. What are the causes of this fire incidents from what you've observed so far, before we bring you even in touch with some of the speculations that have been built around the fire incidents?
Kano has over the time history of these incidences of fire, but you cannot disconnect these incidences from poor planning. By poor planning, I mean the way and manner in which the markets were constructed. There were no provisions for emergency. They are chopped up. There is no adequacy of planning. With regards to yesterday's incidents, it's just full of thoughts, but there is nothing political to the incidents that occurred. I was privileged to have spoken to one of the leaders of the market. From their preliminary findings, one of the cause, or what they think is the cause of the incident, was as a result of battery burst, which ignited fire and which led to the entire market, section of the market being burned. But there is nothing about that. I think the government needs to do something similar to what is obtainable in Kaduna and perhaps Lagos, come up with a public-private partnership to see how they will construct new markets using modern technology, given spaces. In modern markets, you see, maybe when there is a fire incident in a shop, it doesn't spread to the next door to its neighborhood because of the provisions that are provided. It's a concrete shops that have no, that doesn't give room for escalation of the fire. I think that would solve the problem in a very long way.
All right. Thank you so much for that feedback. Let's talk in terms of some of the speculations right now around the Kano fire incident. First was the plastic market fire incident, and right now it is the GSM market. And there are speculations right now that this is an attempt to frustrate the Emirates in terms of the Emirates being piloted by the person of Sanusi Lamido at this point. But how correct is this assertion that some of these fire incidents right now are being sponsored by the Bayero team in order to frustrate the Emirates in Kano State?
You see, I'm not speaking for anyone, neither Sanusi nor Ado Bayero, but fact speaks. It doesn't make sense whether there is fire incidents or not. Already the security agencies had requested that or had instructed that all solar bans had been cancelled. So with or without fire incidents, that is in place. And whether Whether there is compliance to the order or not, that's another thing for discussion. But I don't think there is anything or anyone that will cause this mayhem or unnecessary outbreak just to justify certain things. It doesn't make any sense in my view. And then for speaking from inside, there is not anyone that come or there has not been any hoodlums that have come to set any place ablaze. It's just something that happens naturally. I'm not speaking for anyone, of course, but you, as a journalist, you can also fact find to see whether what we are saying is true or not. But it's not the speculations are there false, and maybe they are the speculations are even now becoming the political scene, giving it a room or a dimension of where the fire is coming from. The fire, I think, is something, it's an act of God and it's natural. And I know government will do everything possible to see that they've assuaged to their things.
All right, welcome back. Let's even delve into the conversation. All right, so let's get your one penny of on that conversation at Damu right now. Please, let's even hear you about that allegation that this is coming from a faction that is trying to disrupt the entire Emirates system, even in Kanu at the moment.
Oh, I was talking before we go to break. What I was saying is that I earlier told you that I've spoken to one of the leaders of the market who has confirmed to me that the fire incident was natural as a result of a blast of a battery that was spread. But the allegation that it is from a section of the two embattled areas, that allegation is false. I am not speaking for anyone, but that's the fact. And I think you can equally fact find to know whether what I said is true or not. That allegation is a mere allegation, and I think for the sake of progress of the state, it should be do away with. I cannot hear you.
All right, I'm trying to find out from you. Can you hear me now?
I can't. That.
All right, so I'm trying to find out from you right now. There is another angle to that story. Apart from the Emirates, there is an allegation that this whole attempt is, by this fire incident, it's targeted also at a particular geopolitical zones in Nigeria, who have always championed the cost of technology and also technological improvements in the country. How correct is this? Is it to say that this whole process is targeting at a particular ethnic group also within Kano State?
You see, the problem of one of this, what do you call it? One of the future or characteristics of underdevelopment is politicizing every bit of things. So now everything that happens will be attached to certain group or certain personalities, which means there is not going to be any natural cause. Instead of the state to take full responsibility and find or chart a cause to avoid the occurrence, we don't begin to do a blame game. So I don't think all these allegations are true. They are mere false that are targeted at achieving certain political points.
Through, but there's a large conversation that also this speculation that there is no smoke without a fire. Could there be any iota of truth in looking at all of this and the various politics that has played out so far in Kano State between Ganduje and the current governor of the state? Can there be an iota of truth even in this whole saga?
There can never be, of course, smoke without fire. And then it's as a result, perhaps, of this political that's between the Concourse and the Gambia faction. That's why some groups are taking advantage for every action, for everything that happens in the state. They try to give it a root or affiliation to any political class. But I think it's not so. Certainly, there is politicking between Ganduje and Concourse, which some quarters and many of the progressives are trying to see that it's no longer, they've come together, they unite, because it's certain that their unity will bring about the needed development for Kano State. But I don't think all these allegations are true. I still stand on my feet to debunk them. Most of the happenings in the state are natural.
I would say at this point also that there have been some form of infiltration into Kano State, and because looking at the first incident, all we get from the government is barely compensation from the government. We can say at this point that probably certain individuals are trying to downplay on the government's achievements so far and developmental strides in the state. But we look at it politically. Can one begin to say that this is to downplay on the governor's achievements in the state?
I don't think it is true because no one is destroying what the government is constructing. Had it been There are a group of thugs that have been sponsored perhaps to destroy some of the infrastructures that are put in place by the government. You now take this allegation to the very heavy weight, but it's not so. These are occurrences that happen naturally, and no one is stopping the state government to do what it's expected to do in terms of intervening to see that they assuage to the difficulties being faced by the victims of these fire incidences. I don't think it is so because no one is stopping the state government to do what it's expected to.
When you look at it critically, you are saying to a very large extent that this is not a mischief, rather it is born out of natural, if I get you correctly.
That's for me. That's it. That's true. And then it has been, to add more, I would say it has been the state failure because over there ought to have been planned by the state government to upgrade the markets to avoid occurrence of these fire incidences because modern markets do hardly faces these challenges.
All right. Thank you so much, Adamu, for that contribution. We'll go for this break. And when we come back, we'll talk about other incidents even within the northern part of Nigeria, taking it from Benue State and other parts of the north that have seen greater insecurity. Please stay with us as the show continues in a moment.
Okay. One of the insecurity should continues in a moment.
Well, welcome back. Well, let's even look at the state of the nation, taking it from other parts of the country right now, where we've seen quite a lot of insecurity that have greeted particular sections in the country, especially within the north central part of Nigeria, talking about Benue and also Plateau State. Well, just recently, Governor Hycinth Alia has gained support from fellow clergymen in the face of mounting calls for a state of emergency even in Benue State. Well, when you look at all of those stuff put together, there are reports that Charismatic Bishop Conference of Nigeria have rejected calls from some of their colleagues for the declaration of state of emergency rule during a press briefing held in Makurdi. Well, let's take a look at our correspondent report, and when we come back, we'll delve into the level of insecurity bedeviling the north central part of Nigeria, particularly in Benue State, and if at all there is a need to have a state of emergency in Benue State. Please stay with us. Let's take a look at this report.
The recent wave of deadly attacks on vulnerable communities in Benue State has heightened insecurity and sparked mixed reactions from residents and observers alike, with some individuals and groups calling on President Tinubu to declare a state of emergency in Benue. In response to the calls, Archbishop Alexander Nyoike, State Overseer of the Charismatic Bishops Conference of Nigeria, said Governor Hycinth Alia, as a fellow clergyman, deserves the support of religious leaders, emphasizing that Benue needs unity, not a state of emergency, to confront its common enemy.
As fathers of faith, when you have a son and a brother in the vineyard and is doing well, you say, my brother, keep it on. I must say thank you, Mr. President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. As you earlier on said, you are standing by the Benue people. We say continue to stand with us and continue to stand with our governor. He's our brother in the vineyard, and we are praying seriously. And what I'm expressing here is pray ye and watch.
The Archbishop stressed that at this critical time, Benue requires unity and collective support for the governor to succeed. He referenced biblical teachings that calls on believers to respect authority, noting that leadership is divinely ordained.
We cannot be against anybody that is saying anything. What we know is there's no authority that is set on earth that is not from God. Any authority that is set on earth comes from God. And the Bible says you must be submissive to the authority. We are the state chapter here. Yes, we are prophets, but we are submissive to the authority. We want to call on Benue citizens and the Christian body not to join the people who kill the child and divide the child. Let the child live so that tomorrow we will use, and tomorrow we will send, and tomorrow the child will feed us.
Clerics reaffirmed their support for Governor Alia and praised President Bola Tinubu for his continued commitment to the people of Benue, particularly his recent directive for the Chief of Army Staff to pay a 2-day operational visit to the state for on-the-spot assessment in response to the escalating insecurity. In Makurdi, Felicity Ndere, Global TV News.
All right, let's even look at that conversation right now, Adamu. When we look at what is happening in Benue State, people said it's of great security concern. But then, not just people say, when we assess it critically, a lot of bloodbath in Benue State, and this is sad in terms of the level of insecurity recorded in Benue State. But when you look at this and try to tie this up with what is happening in Maiduguri and Yola and other parts of the north, especially within the north center, that we've seen high level of bloodbath, what do you make of the insecurity level in the northern part of Nigeria right now? All right, so Adamu, we're trying to find out from you right now some of the insecurity concerns in Nigeria, looking at the north central part of Nigeria. What's your general take even on the various insecurity challenges that we've experienced in the country. While one is trying to tie the security challenge around the country to the northeastern part of Nigeria, and the north central will say, of course, we are still here and we are still experiencing a lot of insecurity across the country. But we'll look at this various insecurity and use that to begin to assess the various governors across the state, assess the various local government chairmen, how best they've been able to perform in terms of delivering on the dividends of democracy and the impact of good governance that they've sworn by the Constitution to uphold and also protect the territorial integrity of Nigeria. We'll look at all of these practices and what they've been able to do so far. One begin to question what the government and the various tiers of government have been able to do in order to mediate and also ensure that they are able to curtail the excesses of insecurity in the country. All right, let's even get your thought right now, Adamu. When you look at the various insecurity in the Benue State and other north central parts of the country, what do you make of this various development, tying it with what the government ought to be doing in terms of addressing security concerns in the country?
You see, crisis as we evolve in the contemporary world are inevitable, and hence there is continuous need to invest in trying to see that they have acknowledged challenges that might be caused arising from those crises. The crisis in Benue and North Central in general are no different from what the entire globe is facing in terms of insecurity, only that there is need for more government effort in trying to see that they have doused the crisis tension. The Northwest used to be the center of insecurity some few months or years back, but we are grateful with the invented effort of the federal government. Certain parts of the Northwest is becoming a bit better now. So I think similar efforts need to be done by the federal government as well as the state government and the private security agents to see that they have calmed the nerves of those insecurity in particularly Benue and Plateau states.
Very, very interesting conversation so far. But then when we try to look at the various issues that have greeted these areas, people have tried to nexus or link this conversation to the fact that this is born out of various community clash, header farmers crisis, and all of this. But it's escalating by the day. One cannot say there is a visible communal clash in Benue State, but the number of deaths keep rising by the day. When one begins to assess all of this, what's your general take even on the position of the death toll in the far north central as it stands right now? On that at Adamu. But then before we even look at that, we'll go for this. We'll take a short break right now. And when we'll come back, the conversation continues in a moment. Please stay with us.
Hello?
All right, welcome back. Now, let's delve into that conversation again, looking at the fact that a lot of waters has passed through the bridge, even in the north central part of Nigeria. Looking at it from any angle you choose to, even want to cross-check the waters that have passed under the bridge. So, Adamu, let's look at these old policies by the Benue State government in order to address the concerns, all of these. But then people are still calling for a state of emergency in Benue State and also that of Plateau State. But then we had little or no call for a state of emergency in Maiduguri and that of Maiduguri and Yola, where almost a military barracks was hijacked and almost captured by insurgents in those states. But then the government tend to turn a blind eye on it. When you look at the various insecurities in this state, should we be calling for a state of emergency in Benue State right now, or we should look the other way as we've done for a state of Borno and Adamawa so far? All right, so we're trying to find out from you, Adamu, if we should begin to turn a blind eye at the various insecurity challenge, even in the north central part of Nigeria, or we should call for a state of emergency. Have we gotten to that point yet? Or we should begin to talk about state of emergency when we begin to assess the level of damage being done even in the north central part of Nigeria right now, where people are already clamoring for a state of emergency, an urgent state of emergency like that word within this geopolitical zone. But little or no state of emergency cry. It's been called for even in the state of Maiduguri, that is in Borno State, I beg your pardon, and also Plateau State, where we have a high rise of terrorism attack or near state syndrome. Now we have, of course, Governor Babangana Zulum have come out from this assertion by saying that the Boko Haram and other insurgents are regrouping in some of these communities in states. But in such an instance of this magnitude, what should we begin to look into and what should be the concern? Should we call for a state of emergency, or we should look the other way around and find a better alternatives to deal with Benue and other on Plateau State and other north central concerns that have been raised in terms of insecurity in these zones? All right, so we are looking at all of this. Well, from time immemorial, one would say that the issue of insecurity across Nigeria in its nascent democratic development has evolved over time. And just like the popular evolutionary theory will say that it has moved from what they call the Australopithecus to an Homo habilis and then to Homo erectus. And it has landed us to the Homo sapiens stage of insecurity. But when we look at it also using the onions layer of conflict analysis, the conflict incidents even in Benue State has tend to defile all conflict analysis theory and postulations, because one cannot literally say that this conflict in Benue State and that of Plateau is born out of just the herders-farmers clashes, because we know that Governor Alia of Benue State has been doing quite magnificently well in order to ensure that it brings all aggrieved parties that feel threatened by the various herder-farmers clash and various Kabuna clash to the drawing board in order to have a proper resolution. And we've seen that happen in various quarters across Benue State, where the governor has been in charge of championing that course to bring peace and a lasting peace in Benue State. And also the Plateau State governor have come out to say, that's the person of Governor Mufwang, have come out to say that he has been overwhelmed by the various insecurity that has greeted the state for the last couple of months. It is quite sad that we've lost quite a number of people, even in Plateau and Benue State. Not forgetting the silent insecurity challenges that is going on even in Nasarawa State and that of Kogi State. Not forgetting the security challenges that is going on, reported in security challenges happening even in Kwara State. We'll look at all of this concern and we'll try to look at the various north central zone, geopolitical zone of the country. One would say that this zone for the last 2 years has been greeted with a lot of insecurity challenge. Prior to this time, it was the case of the northeastern part of Nigeria, where a state like Borno was quite a lot of communities, even in Borno state, was captured by Boko Haram. Then it now evolved to what we call the banditry. Then we now move to the headers farmers clash and what have you. We still are trying to address the concerns that has been raised even in Borno state. Yola is still there by the sideline, and we're still trying to look at all of this concern. But a lot of people are calling for an urgent state of emergency even in Benue State at the moment. This is coming from the Christian Society, and of course the bishops have come out to say that, hey, we are not saying that there should be a state of emergency or emergency rule in the state. We are only saying that the government should also intensify its efforts to address some of this concern. One look at all of these issues right now and trying to tie them up across the country. What do you make of those developments? Adamu, let's come back to you even on this conversation.
Yeah, can you hear me?
All right, well, we're still having difficulties to get you to talk to us, Adamu, even on this concern
Are
about
you
the insecurity in the part of Nigeria. Are you there right now, Adamu?
Yeah, I am.
All right, please, let's get your quick take even on this issues right now.
I see insecurity as it is, or conflict is something that is inevitable in the contemporary world we live in. For another, coming down to our country, Nigeria specifically, insecurity have skyrocketed. As you laid the analysis from the northwestern banditry, farmer clashes, kidnapping, and what have you, and now what we do see in the north central, which we see communal clashes. We think in all of this, the most significant or consequential aspect to be deliberate at trying to see that we have managed these conflicts and crises. It is certain that we cannot eliminate or have zero insecurity level or have 100% security, but we expect, because the more we secure the environment, the better we have a future for ourselves and our children. All this insecurity, if you aggregate it to me and in my view, is as a result of poor governance, commitment, and policies to issues of education and social services for the masses. You will not be having the youth to recruit today if you had done something to have equipped the schools yesterday for the student to have been better. At least I have been educated. I was privileged to have up to at least undergoing a PhD. No one would just recruit me to pick up a gun and just be fighting a communal clashes or put me into Boko Haram when I am seeing I have an optimistic future. So this is it. And the only way or the best way to go is still the same thing. Take an immediate control. By immediate control, I mean the government should come up with emergency responses to see that they have given accommodation, shelter, and what have you to the victims of this insecurity. But there is need to equip schools so that the young ones will not get recruited into becoming these agents of insecurity. Rather, they become on quota to the development of our country. So, in submission or in conclusion, this is my view.
Right. Unfortunately, you're supposed to drop your 1 penny. We lost you at that point, Adamu. Are you still there, Adamu?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Let's get your submission in all of this.
So as I was saying, all these things has united. The insecurity in Nigeria literally started with the Boko Haram northeast, coming down to the northwestern banditry, kidnapping, amongst host of others, which was started as like cattle rustling and what have you. And now what we see in the north central Benue and Plateau, to communal and religious crisis. To sum up all these things, in my view, they are as a result of the state failure. If the state had taken the right direction years back to have equipped our schools and educate the children, we wouldn't all the agents of this insecurity into these heinous crimes today. So it is something the government should have an immediate or emergency response to the insecurity that is taking care of the victims, providing shelter for in the immediate, and then in the long run, there ought to be a system, or there is supposed to be an effective system that will educate the upcoming generation, so that they do not become, or they do not be recruited into becoming the agents of insecurity that will destabilize the entire nation in the long run.
I want to say thank you so much for being a part of the show this evening. I wish we have time to talk more, even on issues that have tend to bedevil the northern central part of Nigeria right now, but I've been saying right that it's time to go. I want to appreciate you for your time. Thank you so much.
It's glad to be mine. Thank you.
All right, viewers, this is how far we can go even on Big Talk today. Well, do remember that you can follow us on our various social media handle currently showing on your screen using @TVNG, and you can also download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for your Android and iOS devices to keep track of our broadcasts. My name is Godwin Sunday. Always remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Up next is News Prime. Please stay with Global Television. Bye for now.